So we are going to start on our knees, about hip distance apart, feet wider than your hips. Take the block and stick it between your heels and sit back on it. And if this is too much on your knees, you can always opt to just sit in a regular seated position. But having this opening on the front of the quads might be helpful for what might come later. So kind of take it as you want. You can reach underneath, grab your one foot at a time, lift it up and kind of pull the front of your ankle back. And then reach under your knees and lift the knees forward and pull them forward. And take your hands onto your pelvis. And just even before we get started, start to rock your sit bones forward as you round your spine. And then rock your sit bones to point backwards as you extend your spine. So kind of going between a rounding of your spine and then an arching of your spine. And you can close your eyes here. Just kind of feel this movement of the pelvis creating the flexion and extension in the lumbar spine. And add your breath into it. So as you find extension or the arching of the back, use the inhale. And as you exhale, draw the navel towards the spine and almost as if you're using your belly button to zip up the front of your spine. And we used this breath last week. Inhale through your nose. And as you exhale, shush out your mouth. So shh. As you zip it up. So make your exhale long. And using the force of the exhale and the shush to zip it up. And continue this, but each time you rock forward, rock a little less forward. And each time you rock back, rock a little less back. Maybe starting to quiet your shuh a little bit. And then minimize this to where it's just happening in the region between the bottom of your rib cage and your pelvis. So don't let your upper back round or extend. And then as you continue to minimize it, can you keep it just in the region between the top of your hips and the bottom of your rib cage? Continuing to use the shush, even though you can hear I'm probably not, I'm talking. Until you find your spine in alignment. So chin drawing in towards your neck and up towards your throat, lengthening your cervical spine, broadening across the front of your collarbones, knitting the bottom of your ribs in towards the midline and down towards the fronts of your hips and your pelvis in relative neutral. And if you haven't already, close your eyes. Resting the tongue on the roof of your mouth. Return your breath to normal, breathing in and out through your nostrils. And if you noticed when you used that shush sound that it lengthened or extended the length of your exhale. So without using the shush sound, can you create the same sensation you felt in that region of the transverse abdominis, the corset type muscle on the front of your spine? Can you sense how that type of exhalation engages your transverse abdominis? And noticing with each inhalation, a slight expansion of your ribs out to the side, as if you could feel the full circumference of the bottom of the rib cage expanding softly, gently as you inhale. And then as if you were using the shush sound to exhale. Just a couple of more breaths. And gently open your eyes and bring your hands to the shoulders and your elbows out to the sides in line with your shoulders. Inhale deep into your lungs. Use the shush sound as you twist to your right as far as you can with your hands on the shoulder. And then take your left hand and grab the outside of your right knee if you're able. If not, you can use the inside of your left knee as well. Wrap your right hand behind your back and wrap the outside of the back of the hand on the outside of your left hip. Move your hip a little bit into your hand. Inhale. And this time using the shush sound again. Twist using your hands to move yourself a little deeper. So you move deeper into the twist. Can you continue to hold using the oblique muscles and bring your hands back to your shoulders, elbows lifting to shoulder height? And take 3 more breaths here. If the shush sound helps to create the engagement of your obliques as well as your transverse, you can use that. And then rotate forward. Release your hands. And then bring your hands back to your shoulders. Inhale deep into the lungs. As you exhale, shush as you twist to the left. So only going as far as you can use your muscles, your obliques, to twist yourself. And then bring your hands, right hand either to the outside of the left knee or inside of the right knee. Left hand wraps behind your back and comes to the outside of your right hip. Move your hips slightly into your hand, just as a reminder, hips don't move. The rotation comes from your mid-spine. Inhale into your lungs. As you exhale, shush it out as you use your hands to twist yourself a little deeper. Notice the muscles that engage to hold you into this depth of the twist. And then bring your hands back to your shoulders, maintain your twist, and take 3 breaths. Notice what happens when you shush to these muscles. Can you reach into the twist a little bit more? Release back to center. Bring your hands down to rest on your thighs. Lean forward. Remove the block and just set it off towards the front of your mat so it's there for later when we need it. Hands underneath your shoulders, first fingers parallel, or if it's better alignment, you can use the wrist creases to line up with the top of your mat. Press down through your hands and twist your hands into the floor as if you're screwing them down and in. Tuck your toes under and just start to move through cat and cow. So as you inhale, lifting your head, lifting your tailbone, and as you exhale, pressing your hands and your toes into the ground to round your spine. Moving with your own breath. And noticing if you're moving the body first or the breath first, and then maybe transitioning back into that shush sound as you go into your cow pose. And maybe back to that feeling of the drawing the navel in and zipping it up as you shush. And notice if that creates some semblance of a difference in sensation. And the next time you come into your cat pose, stay into your cat pose. So round your spine, drop your head between your arms, tailbone reaching towards your knee, and take 3 breaths, staying in cat pose. And notice if you use the shush sound and the zipping, can you create even more of the flexion in the lumbar spine? The navel drawing in and up towards your spine, and then zipping up towards your rib cage. Come back into neutral. Chin drawing in towards your throat. Reach to the crown of your head, so neck is long. Press down, twist out through the hands. And lower ribs knitted in and pulling down towards the midline. So top of the transverse abdominis is engaged. Bring one of your hands to your lower back and make sure there's a slight arch in your lower back. So the lumbar curve is slightly like in a back bend. That's its natural curve. So stay there. And as you reach your right leg back, minimize how much the hips move. Okay, so right leg is back. Tuck the right toe under and press. So you're on your right toes. Press through your right heel. Feel the length of your side body from the right heel all the way to the right shoulder. Keep the leg back. Lift your left hand off the ground and tap your right shoulder. Bring it back down. Bring the weight to the left hand. Tap your left shoulder. And you'll notice a difference. Just go back and forth. Try to minimize how much you lean to the left when you tap your right shoulder with your left shoulder with your right hand. So push the foot down, reach the heel back, and hug the left hip in. So you very little lean to the left. Come back to center and bring the right leg down. Reach the left leg back, tuck the back toe under, press through the heel, reach through the heel, and feel the reach all the way up the left side body. Right toe can stay tucked under for stability. Keep that low back curve, ribs down and in. Tap your right hand to your left shoulder, bring it back down. Engage your core, lift your left hand and tap your right shoulder. First one is always tricky. And then go back and forth. And as you lift your left hand, can you minimize the lean to the right? So it may help to roll your inner left thigh up towards the sky. May help to engage the core in much the way that we've already been doing it. Good. Come back to neutral. Toes touch, knees wide, and press back into child's pose. Let the forehead rest on the floor, or perhaps it's more comfortable on a block. And come up onto, or lift your elbows off the floor so you're on the palms of your hand. Press down through the palms of your hands and push your hands forward to reach your sit bones closer towards your heel. Slightly tuck your tailbone towards the floor as you scoop your lower belly off, or as if you were pulling it away from your thighs. So you might use the shh as you reach the tailbone between your feet, and you kind of curl the front of your belly. So you're creating that flexion in the spine in child's pose. We're going to take this a step further forward. So bring your hands up and lift up slightly. So now your belly is still between your thighs, but your head's not on the floor. So tilt your tailbone towards the floor, rounding your spine and scooping your lower belly off your thighs. So just do this a couple of times. So as you exhale, shush, pull your tailbone between your feet as you pull your hip points away from your thighs. And you can kind of go back as you inhale. So kind of a cat-cow, but more in a child's pose type position. You can stay in this, or you can bring your hands to rest on your lower back. So you're still leaning forward. You're still as if you were going into child's pose. At this point, you're more in your cat pose or cow pose. So extend your spine, lift your heart. And as you exhale, tilt your tailbone between your feet and pull your navel towards your spine. Inhale, move the hip points towards the thigh, finding an arch in your lower back. And as you exhale, shush, scoop your lower belly, round your spine, pull your hip points off your thighs. Do this 3 more times. And bring the hands back to the floor and come back into your tabletop position. Hands spread wide, press down, twist out. Lift your right leg up and back, this time off the floor. Roll your inner right thigh towards the floor, right hip points pointing straight down towards the ground. Left hip is hugging in. So notice if you push that hip out and bring it back to where your pelvis is in neutral. Elbows point back towards your hips. Chin tucked in towards your throat. Inhale here. As you exhale, bend your elbows towards your hips as you reach your forehead towards the front of your mat. Press back up. I'm going to watch to make sure that you're doing this to see if I need to do it separate. Good. So really reach your chest forward, elbows pull back. So shoulder blades go down your back. That looks great, Lisa. You're the only one I can see. Keep going. 2 more. Come up, keep your right leg lifted. Bring the right toes down to the ground, press through the hands, and lift your left knee towards your nose and round your spine. Drop the left knee to the ground, lift your right leg up. Tap your toe to the ground, right leg stays straight, push down through your hands, and as you exhale, lift your left knee off the ground. Knee to nose. Sit back down. Inhale, lift your right leg. Tap the toe down. Exhale, lift your left knee, knee to nose. 2 more. Lift and hover right leg above the floor. Toe down, push through your hands, round through your spine, knee to nose. Last time, lift your right leg. Tap the toe down, lift your left knee. Tap the toe down. Knees, both knees to the ground, knees wide, toes touch, child's pose. Take deep breaths in and out through your nose. So when we're doing things that are obviously core things, like the things that we just did, if I forget to say, use your shush sound, that's the intention. So I'll try to remember on the other side. Come up halfway. Hands on the ground. This time, tuck your toes under and lift your knees off the floor. Inhale. As you exhale, push back, round your spine, pointing your tailbone between your knees. And as you inhale, lift your head, lift your heart, reach the sit bones back. So exhale, round. Inhale, lengthen your spine. 2 more. Round, pull and zip in, shush. Inhale, lift and lengthen. Last time, shush as you zip, navel in and up towards your ribs. Lift your head, lift your heart, come back to your knees. Walk your hands forward. If there are times that this gets to be too much on your wrist, you can come up onto your fist as well. It helps to build strength in the forearms and it helps to stabilize the wrist. Keep your right hip hugging in as you lift your left leg straight back. Roll your inner thigh up towards the sky. Knit the front of your ribs in. Chin tuck, neck long, slight curve in your low back. Inhale. As you exhale, shush as you bend the elbows back towards your hips. Reach the head and the chest towards the front of the mat and press back up as you exhale. You can use the shush. Inhale. Exhale, bend your elbows, reach head, chest. Inhale, press back up. Do 3 more, so 5 total. So we're keeping the shoulder blades gliding down your back as you reach your head and your chest towards the front of the mat. You can use the shush. It will help to stabilize the diaphragm as that core stabilizer. And then the next time you come up, stay up. Inhale. Drop your toe to the ground, left leg stays straight. As you exhale, shush. Bring your right knee towards your nose, nose towards your knee. Inhale, lift up, lift the leg. Exhale, toe comes down, shush, as you bring knee to nose. So the right knee comes off the ground. 3 more. Inhale, lift, tap the toe, exhale, knee to chest, knee to nose. Inhale. Shush to lift. Last time. Notice when you lift the left leg, if the right hip pops out, minimize that and bring it in. Both knees to the ground. Toes touch, knees wide. Send your hips towards your heels, forehead to the floor. Child's pose. So switching to in and out through your nose to slow down your breath. And coming back more into a natural state of your breath. So we're clearly working on core. We're also working on some hip flexion. And come forward to hands in, or actually walk your hands back and sit back on your heels. And just watch for a second. So I call this down dog squat. I think its real name is bear squat, but we'll call it down dog squat because that makes more sense for me. So just watch. Feet are slightly wider. So we'll start in down dog, and then the knees will bend as we kind of push to a squat at the back of the mat. And we'll shush as we do this. You're going to keep one leg attached to your belly as you kind of come forward into a plank. And you'll switch. So one leg stays close as you take it knee to shoulder. So come into downward facing dog. So spread your hands wide. First fingers parallel or wrist creases in line with the front of your wrist, mat. Tuck your toes under. Lift up and back into downward facing dog. Step your feet almost mat distance apart. Lift high onto your toes. Find where the tops of your leg bones meet your hip socket and push them back as you tilt your pelvis towards your thighs. So you're deepening that hip flexion here. Staying on your toes, bend your knees towards the floor. Let them hover right parallel to the floor. You'll feel your belly between your thighs, and you'll feel right thigh on your belly. Inhale here. As you shush, bring your right knee to your right shoulder. So coming kind of to plank and then push back in that down dog squat. And then switch, squat, squat, squat. One more each side. Squat, squat. Knees to the floor, toes touch. Send your hips back towards your heels, forehead towards the floor. Child's pose. Slow down your breath. So this will show up again later on. Shift forward to hands and knees, and then lower your belly to the floor. Stack your hands and rest your forehead on the floor. Send your feet mat distance apart. We've kind of started to work on establishing the sides of your core, the obliques, the front of your core, transverse abdominis, the diaphragm, the top of your core. Before we move on, let's get a little awareness of the back of your core. So in this position, just breathe. So allow your belly to move towards the floor as you inhale. And feel the natural expansion of your rib cage outward. And as you exhale, shush and move your pubic bone down towards the floor. Inhale into your lungs. And as you exhale, move your pubic bone down towards the floor. So you're going to feel your glutes start to engage. Shh. Keep your hands or your head on your hands as you lift your legs off the ground. Continue to move the pubic bone towards the floor. As you shush, you might start to feel your lower belly pull away slightly from the floor. One more time, inhale. As you exhale, pull your lower belly off the floor. And the next time you inhale, keep your hands connected to your head as you lift your head and your hands off the floor. 3 more breaths here. Inhaling, feeling sides of the ribs expand. Exhaling, shushing, pubic bone presses down, lower belly pulls off the floor. As your last exhale, lower down. Take a few breaths, letting it all go, shifting hips side to side. Hands underneath your shoulders. Press up to hands and knees. Spread your palms. First fingers parallel, tuck your toes under, lift your hips up and back, downward facing dog. Step your feet wide with your toes pointing slightly out. Lift high up onto your toes, tops of the thigh bones push back as you tilt your hip points towards your thighs. Bend your knees, hover, so down dog squat, and walk your hands back, coming into Malasana. So yogi squat at the back of your mat, which looks like this. Bring your elbows between your knees, knees between your elbows. Push them. Elbows are not between your, or knees are not between your elbows. They're on the outside. Push your elbows out into your knees and then squeeze your elbows in, your knees into your elbows. As you inhale, breathe out. As you exhale, shush. Can you lift up slightly? So lifting your butt off the floor and then let go. Inhale, shush, lift, butt almost parallel to the floor and let go. So now we're bringing pelvic floor into it. Inhale, shush, lift your hips. It kind of looks like this, or a little froggy. Let's try one more. Inhale, press knees and elbows. Exhale, shush, lift pelvic floor to lift the hips. Stay here, hands to the ground. Forward fold, turn the toes in. Inhale, halfway lift. Start to walk the feet a little bit more narrow. And as you exhale, fold, grab your opposite elbow and hang. Allow the crown of the head to reach towards the floor. You may see what it feels like to use the shush in this more relaxed position. Release the hands to the floor. Walk forward to table down dog. Lift high up onto your toes. Feet almost mat distance apart. Bend your knees as you send the hips back. Keep your right thigh attached to your belly. And as you exhale, shush, send knee to shoulder and step your right foot to your right thumb. The feet are back, hip distance apart. Drop your left heel down and in. Right knee above your ankle joint. Lift up into Virabhadrasana 1. So tailbone reaches towards the floor. Pubic bone peels up to engage the lower belly. Ribs knit in and draw down. Arms over your head. Press through the outer edge of your back foot as you lift the top of your left thigh up and back. Sink a little deeper into your front hip crease. Hands to your heart. Inhale here. As you exhale, fold halfway and hold. Right knees bends above your ankle joint. Left heels pressing down and back into the floor. 3 breaths here. So inhale, and as you exhale, shush and peel your right hip point off your inner right thigh. Come all the way back up, arms over your head. Straighten your right leg. Hands to your hips. Square the hips forward. They won't go all the way forward, but as if you could. Press through the outer edge and back heel to help move the legs in this position. Hands stay on the hips. Right leg stays straight. Inhale. As you exhale, shush, pull navel towards spine as you fold halfway. And you might not go halfway. It might just be a quarter of the way. Keep pressing your feet into the ground, 3 breaths. Inhale. As you exhale, pull right hip back, hug it in. Bend the right knee as you lift up, arms come over your head. Hands back to your heart. Come up onto your left toes. Step left foot up beside right foot. I'm going to turn to face you so you can see me. So staying on your right foot, bend your knees slightly forward and your hips slightly back. So not quite a chair pose, but as if you were going into chair pose. Make sure you have the natural curve in your lower back and the ribs knitting in and down. Shift your weight onto your right foot. Bring the left knee forward, balance. Hug the hips in, toe in the lower belly. Cross. Left leg over right, maybe taking the foot behind the calf or just pushing the foot into the calf. Swing right arm under left. Fingertips into the palm of your left hand. Inhale. As you exhale, shush and crunch. Inhale, rise up. Exhale as you shush, crunch. Inhale. Last time as you shush, crunch. Take your knee and touch your knee to your elbow, and then bring the left leg back as you come into Virabhadrasana 3, just for a pause, and then foot to the ground, arms up. Step to the front of your mat and squat. So coming back into Malasana, knees forward, hips back. Hands behind your hips. Come down onto the floor, so sit down. Bring your feet off the floor and take the top of your knees. So peel the knees back. Tap left foot forward. Bring the knee in. Tap right foot forward. Bring the knee in. Tap. Bring it in. Tap. Bring it in. One more left. One more right. Bring the hands behind the knees and take a couple of rolls on your spine. Roll back onto your back. Knees above your hips, shins parallel to the floor. Find your cues. So chin in, neck long, collarbones broad, ribs knitted in and down, moving your rib cage towards the floor, keeping your lower back off the floor. Bring your hands behind your head, interlacing your fingers, elbows wide. Inhale here. As you exhale, bring your knees towards your head and touch your elbows around your knees. And then lower your heels to the ground and your head to the ground. Exhale, curl your spine. So your spine does go to the floor. And then as you inhale, head and heels touch the floor. We're going to do 5 more of these. As you exhale, try the shh. As you inhale, bring it down. Shh. Feeling the hip creases deepen as you curl up and in. Maybe even looking between your thighs to keep your chin tucked. Grab behind your knees and start to rock again. And then if you can get enough momentum, Rush is in the wrong place right now. Can you roll all the way back up to the Malasana without using your hands, or perhaps using your hands? Hands to the floor, to the front of your mat. You can step or hop back to plank and then lower down chaturanga. Lower the hips to the floor. Stack the forehead on your hands. Press the pubic bone down. Shush the belly off the floor. Lift your legs. Lift your head in your hands. 3 deep breaths. Each exhale, shushing. Really find that connection, that diaphragmatic support. Release hands beside your ribs. Tuck your toes under. Either press up through hands and knees, or tone your belly. Press up plank and down dog. Separate your feet almost mat distance apart. Lift high up onto your toes. Press the tops of your leg bones back as you tilt your pelvis towards your thighs. Shush the breath out to stabilize the front of your core. And bend your knees, shins parallel to the floor, down dog squat. Keep your left thigh attached to your belly. Inhale. Shush as you take knee to shoulder and then step left foot to left thumb. Rotate your right heel down and in. And your left heel should be slightly wider than your right heel. You can either use your hands to crawl up or lift up to Virabhadrasana 1. And pausing here to find your core. So pubic bone moving up towards your navel, tailbone reaching down. Cinching lower ribs in and down. Chin in, neck long. Press your right heel firmly into the floor and slightly back. Feel the top of your back of your right thigh firm. Bring your hands to your heart. Left knee is bent directly over your left ankle. Inhale. And as you exhale, hinge from your front hip crease, folding about halfway down. Pause here. Keep pressing right heel down and back. Left knee is bent deeply. Left hip points pulling off the thigh. So keep the core engaged to find your balance here, your stability, to lean and hold. Hug the hips in. One more breath. Inhale, lift up, straighten your left leg. Square the hips forward, find your cues. Hands at your heart. Inhale. As you exhale, reach the hands back and fold as far. You don't want to go further than half because we're using the core, but tilt as far forward as you can, maintaining straight legs, hips hugging in, right heel pushing down, and hip point off your left thigh. Use the shush. Notice the tendency to flare your ribs. Bend your left knee, lift up. Step, right foot up beside left. So feet about hip distance apart. This time, lift up onto your toes and lengthen your spine. So stretch your spine, hands to heart. How long can you stay on your toes? Clearly, I can't very long. As you lower down onto the squat. So heels off the floor, tone and lower slowly. Maybe implementing the shush. Coming down slow. Maybe staying up on your toes, maybe taking heels to the ground. Elbows inside your knees. Push. You can either bring your hands behind your hips or perhaps using kind of what we've been learning to slowly lower the hips down. So curling, shushing, and then rocking. Rock up. Pull the knees in as far as you can. This time, tap your toe and then lift your foot knee height. Bring it down, tap your right toe, lift it, bring it down. Tap, lift, bring it down. Tap, lift, bring it down. One more time, left, lift, bring it down, tap, lift, bring it down. Hands behind your knees, rock back onto your spine. Find your cues. Hands behind your head. Elbows wide. Inhale. As you exhale, straighten your left leg and reach your right or your left elbow outside of your right knee. Inhale, come back. Twist to the opposite. Exhale, reach right leg long as you tap elbow to the outside of your left knee. Keep going. Twist. Breathing in through your nose. Using the shush to encourage the twist, the obliques, transverse abdominis. One more each side. Come back to center, grab behind your knees. Start to rock forward and back. So momentum going. And then if you have enough momentum, you can rock through to Malasana or use your hands to push up to Malasana. Hands to the floor, forward fold. I forgot something and I want to make sure that we get it before we go any further. Feet about hip distance apart. Fingertips to your hip creases, elbows towards the sky, lift halfway. Fine. Lengthen your lumbar spine. So find that extension in your lumbar spine. So spine is in neutral, pelvis is tilted. And then lift all the way up. Feet together. Bend the knees slightly forward, hips slightly back. Hands on your hips. Lift your right knee off the ground and cross. Maybe taking foot to the back of your calf or bring it to the outside of your shin. Pressing the foot into the shin. Squeezing thighs, squeezing knees, hands wide. And then wrap. Elbows, shoulder height. Inhale here. And as you exhale, crunch. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, crunch. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, crunch. Bring your right knee to your elbow, send it back. Virabhadrasana 3. Step the foot back. Unwake the arms. Step the foot forward. We're going to go into Malasana. If Malasana is not comfortable to hang out, you have a handy dandy block here. So if you use the block, I'm going to encourage you as you're watching to take the time to kind of put to practice of lifting off the block, right? Because that's what we're going to do. So either sit on your block or sit in Malasana and watch. So when you do this, and you're just watching right now, when you do this, you're going to use your block. And I think I'm going to do it from a side view. So you're going to stand on your block with your heels together off the back end of the block and your toes slightly duck-footed. So the heels touch. So it looks like this, that you're standing on your block. Heels are touching and toes are as wide as your block. You're going to bend your knees and come into somewhat of a Malasana, more kind of like a frog. You're really going to work on pressing your feet together. And then your hands are going to come to the floor, fingers parallel, first fingers parallel. Hands are shoulder width apart. They can even be slightly wider than shoulder width apart. This may be where you stay. You may just hang out here and maybe practice doing what we've been doing, the shushing out and kind of lifting the hips as you round your spine. So this is a great core workout on its own, right? So you're rounding and sliding your knees up your shoulders. Next option, knees are on the outside of your arms. You're gonna do that little lift. Notice that my head is looking towards the front of my mat. I'm not looking at my feet. I'm looking forward and even reaching with my head and my heart, putting the weight on the upper arms, and then you might lift one foot at a time. And you can use the shh, shh. And next option is to lift both feet. I've been here for a while. Squeezing your heels together, right? So you come off the block with both feet for Bakasana. So find your block and stand on it. Toes are as wide as your block. Heels are together. Squeeze the heels together. Start to bend your knees and hinge your hips, right? So balancing on the block, come forward, hands to the floor. Yeah. Bring your hands flat to the floor. First fingers parallel. Press the hands down and twist out. Make sure that your hands are shoulder width apart. So you want them wide. So let's just do the little lift up a little time. So inhale into your lungs. And as you exhale, shift forward slightly, shush, as you lift your hips about shoulder height. And then lower down. Inhale. As you exhale, keep looking forward. Shh. Round and lift the hips. Good. Try that one more time. Feel how it feels. Shh. Maybe you keep doing that. Maybe the next time you come into it, you stay into it. Look, reach your head towards the front of your mat and lean forward, bringing your knees onto your upper arms. Test one foot, lifting off your block at a time. And then depending on that, how that feels, continue looking at the front of your mat. Squeeze the knees into your upper arms. Shh. Round your spine. Heels stay together. See if you can come off your block. And any of those things leading up to it, is the pose. So just know that. When you're done, come into child's pose, or not child's pose, come into downward facing dog just for a couple of breaths, and you can move your block out of the way. Very nice. Looks like you're having fun with this. And you maybe want to bend one knee and then the other. So allow your spine and your hips to kind of move side to side. And then lower down into child's pose. So knees wide, toes touch, forehead towards the floor, hips towards heels, and breathe. And go into a natural breath. So whatever breath you've been using throughout the class to work the core, let that go. Shift forward onto hands and knees. Cross your ankles. Sit back. We're going to use block. We're going to do a restorative bridge pose for our final Shavasana, most of it, because we've not done a lot of back bending. So heels in line with your sit bones, lower your back onto the floor. Lift your hips off the floor and take the block starting at the lowest level and rest it under your pelvis. So it's not supporting your low back, it's supporting the bone of your pelvis, where the sacrum is. And take your hands to your lower belly. And take a few breaths here, not trying to alter the breath or create some magical breath. Just use your natural breath. And notice if you're trying to create more of a back bend by lifting the rib cage, and instead try to allow the lower part of your rib cage to kind of move and relax towards the floor. You can allow your knees to knock in towards each other, so walking your feet slightly wider than your hips. And if it is comfortable at this height, then you wish to remain at this height, you can do so. You also have the option to take the knees apart, push down, and take the block up to the second level. So lying flat on the long, narrow edge. And then again, scan your body to see where you're trying to create a more. So to lift more, and see if you can kind of settle, soften into those places. Notice your natural breath. Notice any natural tendencies in this position. For me, and this might not be true for you, but I find it very easy to have a natural, long exhalation. And lift your hips up, remove your block, and lower your hips to the ground. I'm going to take about 5 natural breaths in Shavasana. So extend your legs long and shift your hips a little side to side, letting your spine relax, shake out. And then continue to follow mind to breath. We're moving in a way that feels right, comfortable for your body. Take the next 3 to 5 breaths to invite whatever movement your body needs at this time as you eventually find your way into a seated position. And taking options to rest or pause when noted, when needed. And once you come to a seated position, and bring your hands to meet at heart center, feeling as your hands connect, yourself meet self. Exhaling, bow your head towards your heart, honoring the reason why you came to the mat, what this practice means to you physically, how it serves you emotionally, spiritually. And just noticing how you feel. Maybe you took a little leap towards flying today. Maybe you made some connections that you've not made before. So just kind of taking those notes, those mental notes, and honoring yourself for showing up. And I honor the divine within each and every one of you. Namaste.